So, with government programs being in utter turmoil and the Super Bowl right around the corner, seems like as good a time as any to talk about stereotypes and what one of the biggest problems with stereotypes are that I think people seem to glaze over or at least don't discuss as well as they should. And it's that stereotypes are always bad. Always bad. Even the quote unquote good ones. What the heck am I talking about? Well, without revealing too much about myself, if you're if you don't know me, stereotypes I'm very intimately familiar with. All the different types of stereotypes that you can think of, whether they're ethnic stereotypes or stereotypes based on gender or stereotypes based on political ideology. And, you know, long story short, they're always bad because they turn the subjects of the stereotypes into ideas instead of people. It dehumanizes them. And that's why even the quote unquote good ones are still bad in and of themselves conceptually. We've all heard a lot of different stereotypes about a lot of different kinds of people. Women are bad drivers, or men are obsessed with sex, or black people are prone to criminality, or that Latino people have lots and lots of children. These stereotypes are just like ugly and nasty and very pervasive. And, they also don't reflect the real reality about people in general, which is the primary problem with them. I mean, take one of the ones that I listed now. Black people are prone to criminality. You know, there's an overwhelming number of black people in the population who are not imprisoned and don't have criminal records. And they have to suffer people with that perspective imposing their will on them. And that can create problems for them in their lives. See the Black Lives Matter protests for what I'm talking about. And that's just one of the ways in which stereotypes mess up our world. And honestly, right now, it seems more relevant than it first appears. And that's because stereotypes are a main reason why our current administration is taking such a drastic approach to immigration. Stereotypes run rampant and they're often sinister. But even when they're good, they're not good. Take the model minority stereotype with Asians. Um, there are lots of people around the world, lots of different kinds of people who are good at math and science and understand advanced technology. And of course, you can see where the stereotype came from. I mean, for a good chunk of the 20th century, places like Japan and China were synonymous with advanced technology. And so you can understand why maybe people thought the culture itself put an emphasis on STEM kind of education. But to be honest, that happened for circumstances outside of their cultural underpinnings. It happened because, well, it made them a lot of money and it restored, a war torn nation in one regard. So in that case, you can see a stereotype developing and many people trying to say, well, this is a good thing. This is a good stereotype. You shouldn't think of it as bad. The problem with that is that it still reduces a person to an idea. So, if you're an Asian person and say you're not good at math or science, it can have a profound psychological effect, especially when society decides they're not going to tolerate that aspect as if you're not a real person. And and that's when it gets out of control. I mean, there are lots of ways in which stereotypes can seemingly work in a positive way, but it's still a terrible, terrible thing to view. Like, you know, Latino people are often not seen as being leaders. They seem more prone to manual labor. Well, you could argue that, well, that keeps them from being the targets of the public. But look at the world right now as of this video. Clearly, people don't think that Latino people are docile or are people who are, just living their lives. No, there's a concerted effort to demonize them and to move them, literally to move them, to actually move them. And you gotta think it's disturbing. You gotta think there's something wrong with it, because conceptually there's something wrong with it at its core. Even the non-ethnic stereotypes, some of those are some of the worst stereotypes there are. Like, clearly, men don't just only think about sex. There are lots of men around the world who think about lots of other things, you know, like advanced technology. And, not all women are terrible drivers. There are women who drive for a living and they do it successfully and they do it admirably. You may not know who they are, they still do that. And often with these stereotypes, they kill any way of bringing people together. And a great example of that, honestly, are political stereotypes. The stereotype of the conservative, the person who's heartless, fixated on, economics, doesn't see people as having a real foothold, or being human in and of themselves, breaking people down to numbers and being cold. Or the liberal who is meek, weak-minded, maybe a little too receptive and too inviting of different kinds of people and what they stand for. And in both situations, it's a misnomer. I've met plenty of conservatives who have very, good relationships with the people around them. And I've met a lot of liberals who can seem cold and heartless and detached. The fact is that people contain multitudes, and we ought not to fixate on ideas to define them. We should look for people to define the ideas. Look, all I know is this. All I know is that when it comes to stereotypes, it feels like a really convenient way to label people and to get to know people. Well, that's exactly what it is. It's a lazy, easy way to get to know people. And to be honest, not to sound like I'm making a joke or anything, but, in a lot of cases, if you get to know somebody, you could find a non-superficial reason to not like them. If you were looking for that, you don't have to fixate on something that people can't change or something that doesn't affect their human experience. We all want to figure out what's going on in the world, but this is one of those cases where it's like taking a pop quiz with the wrong answers. It's not going to turn out well, and it hasn't turned out well for years. And I know that at the heart of it all, you can't stop people from thinking about it. But maybe we can do something about the way we behave towards one another. Because whether you think about it or not, human beings deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. Any kind of human, anywhere. And no stereotype makes that makes it permissible for you to hate them or hurt them. And that's the bottom line. Stereotypes don't work, and you shouldn't try to make them work. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. I'm glad you tuned in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and please leave a comment. We're trying to start a conversation, and I want to hear what you have to say. So thank you very much, and I'll check you out next time.